Elena stumbled through the dense forest, her once beautiful wedding dress now torn and muddy. Branches caught at the delicate lace, ripping it further with each desperate step. Her hair had fallen from its perfect curls hours ago, hanging in tangled strands around her face. Tears mixed with dirt on her cheeks as she pushed through another wall of pine trees, her white satin shoes barely holding together on the rough ground. She had been running for 3 hours now, ever since she fled from the church steps. The memory of Victor Harrington's cold, demanding eyes still haunted her. At 45, he was nearly twice her age and had a reputation for cruelty that the whole town whispered about. But her father had insisted the marriage would secure their family's debts. Elena couldn't do it. She couldn't promise to love and honor a man who already spoke to her like she was his property. The forest seemed endless. Elena had thought she was following the old river path that would lead to the abandoned Miller estate, where she could hide until she figured out her next move. But nothing looked familiar anymore. The trees all seemed the same, and the afternoon sun was getting lower, casting long shadows that made everything look threatening. Her legs ached, and her breathing came in short gasps. Elena stopped next to a large oak tree, pressing her back against its rough bark. She closed her eyes and tried to calm her racing heart. What had she done? Where did she go? Victor would send people looking for her. Her father would be furious. The whole town would be talking about the bride who ran away. A rumble of thunder made her look up at the darkening sky. Storm clouds were gathering, thick and gray. She had to find shelter soon, or she'd be caught in the rain wearing nothing but a torn wedding dress. Elena pushed herself away from the tree and kept walking, hoping to find some kind of building or even a thick grove of trees to wait under. 20 minutes later, she saw it. Through a break in the trees, there was a small log cabin with smoke coming from its chimney. Elena's heart jumped with relief. The building looked old but well-maintained, with a covered porch and yellow light glowing in the windows. It wasn't the grand Miller estate she'd been looking for, but it was shelter. Elena approached carefully, smoothing down her dress as best she could. She probably looked like she'd been attacked by wild animals. How could she explain herself to whoever lived here? She climbed the 3 wooden steps to the porch, took a deep breath, and knocked on the heavy wooden door. The door opened almost immediately, as if someone had been watching from the window. Elena found herself looking down at a small girl with golden curls and the biggest blue eyes she'd ever seen. The child couldn't have been more than 5 years old, wearing a simple brown dress that was too big for her tiny frame. But what struck Elena most was the expression on the little girl's face. It wasn't fear or surprise. It was pure joy, as if Elena was exactly who she'd been hoping to see. "You came," the little girl whispered, her eyes wide with wonder. "You really came." Elena knelt down to the child's level, confused but touched by the warm welcome. "Hello there. I'm sorry to bother you, but I'm lost and there's a storm coming. Is your mama or papa home?" The little girl shook her head, but her smile never faded. "It's just me and Uncle Jake, but he's not here right now. He went to fix the fence in the back pasture." She reached out and touched Elena's torn veil with gentle fingers. "You're wearing a wedding dress. Are you an angel?" Elena's throat tightened. "No, sweetheart. I'm just a regular person who got very lost. What's your name?" "I'm Lily," the child said proudly. "I've been waiting for you for so long." "Waiting for me?" Elena was more confused than ever. "But we've never met before." Lily took Elena's hand with complete trust and started pulling her into the cabin. "I prayed every single night for God to send me a mama. And tonight, you came to our door wearing the most beautiful white dress, just like I imagined. God answered my prayers." Elena felt her heart break a little. This sweet child thought she was some kind of divine gift. How could she explain that she was just a runaway bride with nowhere else to go? She allowed herself to be led into the warm cabin, which smelled like fresh bread and would smoke. The inside was simple but clean. A stone fireplace dominated one wall, with 2 wooden chairs placed nearby. A small kitchen area occupied the far corner, and Elena could see a narrow hallway that probably led to bedrooms. Everything looked well cared for, but clearly belonged to people without much money. "Are you hungry?" Lily asked, still holding Elena's hand. "I made soup like Uncle Jake taught me. It's not very good, but it's warm." Elena's stomach rumbled, reminding her she hadn't eaten since early morning. "That's very kind of you, Lily. But shouldn't we wait for your uncle to come home?" Lily shook her head firmly. "Uncle Jake says we should always help people who need it, especially when God sends them to us. And I know God sent you, because you're wearing angel clothes and you have kind eyes." Thunder crashed overhead, much louder this time. Elena looked out the window and saw the first drops of rain beginning to fall. She was trapped here now, whether she liked it or not. But looking down at Lily's hopeful face, she realized that maybe being trapped wasn't the worst thing that could happen. "All right then," Elena said softly. "I'd love some soup." As Lily busied herself ladling soup from a pot by the fire, Elena sat in one of the wooden chairs and tried to process what was happening. This innocent child believed God had sent her. The irony wasn't lost on Elena. She'd spent the morning running from one man's idea of God's will, only to stumble into a little girl's answered prayer. The soup was simple but surprisingly good. As they ate together, Lily chattered about her life with Uncle Jake, how he was teaching her to read and write, and how she helped take care of their small garden. But Elena noticed the loneliness in the child's voice, the way she lingered over stories about other families in town, especially the mothers and children she'd seen. "Lily," Elena said gently, "were your mama and papa?" The little girl's smile faded for just a moment. "They went to heaven 6 months ago. There was sickness, and Uncle Jake says they couldn't fight it anymore. But that's why I knew God would send me a new mama eventually. He wouldn't leave me all alone." Elena's heart ached for this brave little girl who had lost everything but still believed in miracles. As thunder rolled across the sky, little Lily tugged Elena's torn veil and whispered, "Will you stay and be our mama like God promised?" Before Elena could answer, heavy boots stomped up the porch steps. Someone was coming home. The front door swung open with a bang, and a tall man filled the doorway. Jacob Matthews stood 6 feet tall, with broad shoulders that spoke of years of hard ranch work. His dark hair was damp with sweat, and his work clothes were covered in mud from fixing fence posts. But it was his eyes that caught Elena's attention. Deep brown eyes that held a mixture of exhaustion and wariness that seemed too heavy for a man who couldn't be much older than 30. Those eyes narrowed dangerously when they landed on Elena, sitting at his kitchen table in her torn wedding dress. "What the hell is going on here?" Jacob's voice was low and controlled, but Elena could hear the anger underneath. His gaze moved from her to Lily, who had jumped up from her chair with pure joy. "Uncle Jake! Uncle Jake!" Lily ran to him, throwing her small arms around his legs. "God answered my prayers. He sent me a mama, just like I asked for." Jacob's expression softened slightly as he looked down at his niece, but his eyes remained hard when they returned to Elena. "Lily, go to your room." "But Uncle Jake, this is—" "Now, Lily." The little girl's face fell, but she obeyed, casting one last hopeful look at Elena before disappearing down the hallway. Elena heard a door close softly. Jacob stepped into the cabin and shut the front door behind him, never taking his eyes off Elena. She stood up slowly, suddenly very aware of how she must look. A strange woman in a destroyed wedding dress, sitting in his home without permission. "I can explain," Elena said quickly. "You better." Jacob crossed his arms over his chest. "I come home to find a stranger in my house, filling my niece's head with nonsense about answer prayers." "Start talking." Elena took a deep breath. "My name is Elena. I got lost in the woods and saw your cabin. The storm was coming, and I needed shelter. Lily let me in." "Lost?" Jacob's eyebrow raised. "In a wedding dress? On my property that's 15 miles from the nearest town?" Elena's cheeks flushed. She hadn't realized how far she'd run. I was supposed to get married today. but I couldn't go through with it. So you decided to run away? Jacob shook his head. And now you're here, letting a 5-year-old think you're some kind of gift from God? I never told her that. Elena protested. She came to that conclusion on her own. I tried to explain that I was just lost, but she was so excited, and then the storm hit. As if to prove her point, lightning flashed outside, followed immediately by a crash of thunder that shook the windows. Rain began pounding against the roof. Jacob looked toward the window, then back at Elena. His jaw tightened. You can't leave in this weather. But come morning, you're gone. I don't know what kind of trouble you're running from, but I won't have it brought to my door. Elena nodded, though something in his tone stung. I understand. I'll be out of your way as soon as the storm passes. Jacob stared at her for a long moment, and Elena saw something flicker in his expression. It was gone so quickly she might have imagined it. But for just a second, his hard mask had slipped, and she'd seen something that looked almost like loneliness. You hungry? He asked gruffly, moving toward the kitchen area. Lily gave me some soup. It was very good. Jacob's expression softened slightly. She's been trying to cook more since. He stopped himself and busied himself with pulling leftovers from a wooden cabinet. She tries to help, but she's just a kid. Elena watched him move around the small kitchen with practiced efficiency. There was something graceful about the way he handled the simple tasks, despite his size and obvious strength. But there was also a deep sadness in the set of his shoulders, in the careful way he avoided looking toward the hallway where Lily had gone. How long has she been with you? Elena asked gently. Jacob glanced at her sharply, as if he hadn't expected her to still be talking. 6 months. Since her parents died. I'm sorry. That must have been very difficult. They were my sister and her husband. Fever took them both within a week. Jacob's voice was matter-of-fact, but Elena could hear the pain he was trying to hide. Lily's all the family I got left. Elena thought about the little girl's excitement, her desperate need for a mother figure. She seems like a wonderful child. She is. Jacob's voice grew fiercer, which is why I won't have strangers filling her head with false hope. She's been through enough disappointment. The words hit Elena like a slap. I would never intentionally hurt her. Maybe not on purpose. But you're here today and gone tomorrow. What's that going to do to a kid who thinks God sent you special delivery? Elena had no answer for that. He was right, of course. She was just a woman running from her own problems, and she'd stumbled into Lily's life at a vulnerable moment. It wasn't fair to either of them. Thunder rumbled overhead again, and Elena heard a small cry from down the hallway. Both adults looked toward the sound. Lily, Jacob called out. There was no answer, but they could hear muffled sobbing. She gets scared during storms, Jacob explained, his harsh expression melting into concern. Ever since her parents died, loud noises make her think something terrible is going to happen again. Without thinking, Elena started walking toward the hallway. Maybe I could. No. Jacob stepped in front of her. I'll handle it. She doesn't need to get more attached to someone who's leaving in the morning. But as Jacob headed down the hallway, the sobbing got louder. Elena heard him speaking in low, gentle tones, trying to comfort Lily. But the crying continued, punctuated by the child's voice calling out words that made Elena's heart break. I want Mama. I want my mama to come back. Jacob's voice grew more strained as he tried to soothe her. Lily, it's just thunder. You're safe. I'm here. But you'll leave too. Everyone leaves. Please don't leave me, Uncle Jake. Elena couldn't stand it anymore. She walked to the doorway of Lily's small bedroom and saw Jacob sitting on the edge of a narrow bed, holding the sobbing child against his chest. His face was a mask of helpless pain. Lily, Elena said softly. The little girl looked up with tear-streaked cheeks. Elena, you didn't leave. Before Jacob could stop her, Lily scrambled out of his arms and ran to Elena, wrapping her small arms around Elena's waist. Elena knelt down and held her, stroking her golden hair. I'm right here, sweetheart. The storm can't hurt you. But it's so loud, and it sounds angry. And what if it takes you away like it took Mama and Papa? Elena's throat tightened. Oh, Lily, the storm didn't take your parents. Sometimes people get sick and their bodies just can't fight anymore. But that doesn't mean everyone you care about is going to leave you. She looked up and met Jacob's eyes. He was watching them with an expression she couldn't quite read. Part gratitude, part frustration, and something else that made her stomach flutter strangely. How about this? Elena said, settling more comfortably on the floor beside Lily's bed. What if I stay right here until you fall asleep? I'll tell you a story about a princess who learned that storms always pass and the sun always comes back. Lily nodded eagerly, climbing back into bed, but keeping hold of Elena's hand. As Elena began weaving a gentle tale about brave princesses and temporary storms, she was aware of Jacob still sitting on the other side of the bed, listening. By the time Elena finished the story, Lily's breathing had grown deep and even. The little girl had fallen asleep holding Elena's hand, a peaceful smile on her face. Elena carefully extracted her hand and stood up. Jacob followed her out of the room, closing the door softly behind them. Thank you, he said quietly. She hasn't slept through a storm since, well, since before. Elena nodded, suddenly feeling awkward. She's been through so much. It's understandable that she'd be frightened. They stood in the hallway for a moment, the only sound the rain pattering against the roof. The storm was already beginning to pass. I should let you get some rest, Elena said. I can sleep in the chair by the fire. Take my bed, Jacob said. I'll sleep out here. I couldn't. You're a guest, even if an unexpected one. My sister raised me to be a gentleman. There was something in the way he said it that made Elena look at him more carefully. In the dim light of the hallway, with his harsh expression softened by concern for Lily, he looked different, younger, and there was a kindness in his eyes that he tried to hide behind his gruff manner. Jacob, Elena said impulsively, what you're doing for Lily, taking care of her, giving up your old life to raise her. It's remarkable. Jacob's jaw tightened. It's what family does. Not always, Elena said quietly, thinking of her own father who had been willing to sell her to the highest bidder to pay his debts. Not everyone would sacrifice their own happiness for a child who wasn't even their own. She is my own, Jacob said firmly. Blood or not, she's mine now. The fierce protectiveness in his voice made Elena's heart skip a beat. This was a man who understood what real love and commitment meant. That night, Elena woke to the sound of crying from Lily's room. She slipped out of Jacob's bed and padded barefoot down the hallway. But when she got to Lily's door, she found Jacob already there, sitting beside the bed and speaking in low, soothing tones. It's okay, little one. Just a bad dream. You're safe. I dreamed the angel lady left, Lily whispered. Elena heard Jacob's sharp intake of breath. Lily, she's not. She hasn't slept peacefully in months, Jacob said softly, as if he had just noticed Elena standing in the doorway. Their eyes met over Lily's small form. In that moment, Elena saw past Jacob's defenses to the exhausted man underneath, a man who was trying his best to heal a broken child while dealing with his own grief. When morning light began filtering through the windows, Elena stood at the kitchen window and watched the horizon. But instead of seeing an empty landscape, she saw riders approaching in the distance. Her blood ran cold as she recognized the lead horse and its rider. Victor Harrington had found her trail. Elena's heart pounded as she watched the riders approach. But as they drew closer, she realized they weren't wearing the fine clothes she'd expected from Victor's men. These were working men in simple shirts and worn hats, and the lead rider was waving in a friendly manner. Morning, Jake, the man called out as he rode up to the cabin. Brought you those fence posts you ordered from town. Elena sagged against the window frame with relief. Just neighbors, not a search party. Jacob emerged from the barn and walked over to greet the men. Elena watched him laugh at something one of them said, and she was struck by how different he looked when he wasn't guarded and suspicious. His whole face changed when he smiled, making him look years younger. Who's that at your window? One of the neighbors asked, pointing toward the cabin. Elena stepped back quickly, but not before Jacob's eyes met hers through the glass. Even from a distance, she could see his jaw tighten. Just a traveler who got caught in last night's storm, Jacob said carefully. She'll be moving on today. But as the morning wore on, Elena found herself reluctant to leave. Lily had awakened in a wonderful mood, chattering excitedly about how the angel lady had stayed the whole night and chased away her bad dreams. The little girl clung to Elena's hand, showing her around the small cabin and introducing her to her rag doll, Molly. "This is my mama's sewing box," Lily said proudly, pulling out a wooden box filled with threads and needles. "Uncle Jake says when I'm bigger, he'll teach me to sew like she did." Elena examined the contents of the box, her heart aching for this child who was trying so hard to connect with the mother she'd lost. "Your mama had very nice things. I bet she was a wonderful seamstress. She made this dress for me," Lily said, spinning around in her simple brown frock. "But it's getting too small, and Uncle Jake doesn't know how to make it bigger." Without thinking, Elena knelt down and examined the dress. "You know what? I think I could let out the seams a little. Would you like that?" Lily's eyes lit up. "Really? You know how to sew?" "My mother taught me before she passed away," Elena said softly. "It's one of the few useful things I learned growing up." Jacob appeared in the doorway, having finished with the neighbors. He looked between Elena and Lily with a frown. "I thought you were leaving this morning." Elena stood up, suddenly feeling awkward. I am. I just thought. Lily's dress is getting too small. I could fix it quickly before I go." "We don't need charity," Jacob said stiffly. "It's not charity," Elena replied, surprising herself with the firmness in her voice. "It's just one person helping another. Isn't that what you told Lily you should always do?" Jacob's frown deepened, but he couldn't argue with his own words. "Fine, but then you're on your way." Elena spent the morning working on Lily's dress, letting out seams and adjusting the hem. As she worked, Lily chattered beside her, asking endless questions about sewing, about Elena's life, about everything she could think of. The child was hungry for adult conversation, for someone to pay attention to her thoughts and ideas. "Where did you learn to cook?" Elena asked as Lily helped her prepare lunch. "Uncle Jake taught me some things, but mostly I just try stuff and see what happens," Lily admitted. "Sometimes it's good, and sometimes Uncle Jake has to eat it anyway and pretend it doesn't taste terrible." Elena laughed. "That's what people who love you do. They eat your terrible cooking and ask for seconds." "Did someone do that for you?" The innocent question caught Elena off guard. "My mother did, when I was about your age, but she died when I was 12. What about your papa?" Elena's smile faded. "My father. Well, he's not very good at the loving part. He's more interested in what I can do for him than in taking care of me." Lily studied Elena's face with the serious expression that children get when they sense adult pain. "Is that why you ran away from your wedding? Because your papa wanted you to marry someone you didn't love?" Elena was amazed by the child's perceptiveness. "That's exactly why, Lily." "How did you know?" "Because you looked scared when you first got here, and you kept looking toward the door like someone bad might come through it." Elena pulled Lily into a gentle hug. "You're a very smart little girl, you know that? Uncle Jake says I'm too smart for my own good sometimes." "There's no such thing as too smart," Elena said firmly. "Don't ever let anyone tell you to be less than you are." Jacob chose that moment to come in for lunch, stopping short when he saw Elena and Lily hugging. Something flickered across his face. Longing, maybe your pain. "Lunch ready?" he asked gruffly. They ate together at the small wooden table, and Elena found herself watching Jacob when she thought he wasn't looking. There was something about the careful way he interacted with Lily, the patience he showed when she spilled her milk, the gentle way he reminded her to eat her vegetables. This was a man who was doing his best to be both mother and father to a grieving child. "Elena," Lily said suddenly, "tell Uncle Jake about how you're going to teach me to sew better." Jacob looked up sharply. "Elena's leaving after lunch, remember? But why can't she stay longer?" Lily's voice took on a pleading tone. "She could teach me lots of things and help with cooking And Lily. Jacob's voice was firm but kind. Elena has her own life to get back to. Elena looked between them, torn. The truth was, she didn't have anywhere to go. She had no money, no family who would take her in, and no skills beyond basic household tasks. But more than that, she was enjoying being needed, feeling useful for the first time in her life. "What if I stayed just one more day?" she heard herself saying. "I could help with some of the mending and teach Lily a few cooking tricks." Jacob's eyes narrowed. "What about your family? Won't they be looking for you?" Elena's stomach clenched. She'd been trying not to think about Victor, about her father's rage, about the consequences of her escape. They might be, but one more day shouldn't matter. But even as she said it, Elena knew she was lying to herself. Every day that passed would make it harder to leave this warm, simple life. Every day would make Lily more attached and make her own growing feelings for Jacob more dangerous. That afternoon, Elena worked in the small garden behind the cabin while Lily played nearby. Jacob was repairing a broken gate, and she found herself stealing glances at him as he worked. There was something attractive about his quiet competence, the way his muscles moved under his shirt as he handled the heavy wooden posts. "You're staring," came a amused voice behind her. Elena spun around to find an older woman watching her with knowing eyes. The woman was plump and kind-faced, wearing a simple dress and carrying a basket of what looked like fresh bread. "I'm sorry, I didn't hear you approach," Elena said, her cheeks burning with embarrassment. "I'm Mrs. Coleman, from the next farm over, and you must be the traveler Jacob mentioned." Elena nodded, wondering how much Jacob had told his neighbors about her. "It's nice to see someone taking an interest in our Jacob," Mrs. Coleman continued with a smile. "That man's been alone too long. Try to raise little Lily by himself." "Oh, I'm not. We're not," Elena stammered. "Course not, dear," Mrs. Coleman said with a wink. "Just an observation from an old woman who's seen plenty of young folks dance around their feelings." Jacob looked up from his work and saw them talking. He wiped his hands on his pants and walked over, his expression cautious. "Mrs. Coleman," he said politely, "what brings you by?" "Brought some fresh bread for you and Lily," she said, handing him the basket, "and wanted to meet your guest properly." Jacob's jaw tightened. Elena was just leaving actually. Mrs. Coleman looked between them with interest. "That's a shame. Lily looks happier than I've seen her in months. Child needs a woman's influence." "Lily's doing fine," Jacob said defensively. "Oh, she's a tough little thing, I'll give you that. But a girl needs someone to teach her about being a lady, about woman things. You can't do everything, Jacob, no matter how hard you try." Elena saw pain flash across Jacob's face. This was clearly something he worried about, whether he was enough for Lily, whether he could give her everything she needed. "I should get going," Elena said quietly, not wanting to cause more tension. But Lily had overheard the conversation and came running over. "Please don't go yet, Elena. Mrs. Coleman, tell her she should stay. She's teaching me to sew, and she makes the best soup, and she chased away my nightmares." Mrs. Coleman's eyebrows rose with interest. "Did she now? She told me a story about a princess, and I slept all night without being scared." "That's wonderful, child," Mrs. Coleman said warmly. Then she looked at Elena with new respect. "Anyone who can help this little angel sleep peacefully is a blessing indeed." Elena felt Jacob's eyes on her, but she couldn't read his expression. Was he grateful for her help with Lily, or resentful that a stranger could do what he hadn't been able to? As Mrs. Coleman prepared to leave, she pulled Elena aside. "I don't know what brought you here, child, but I could see you care about that little girl. And Jacob, well, he's a good man who's forgotten how to let people help him." "I'm not staying, Mrs. Coleman," Elena said firmly. "I can't." The older woman studied her face. "Running from something, are you?" Elena's silence was answer enough. "Well, sometimes the thing we're running from isn't as scary as the thing we're running toward," Mrs. Coleman said gently. "Think about that." That evening, as Elena helped Lily get ready for bed, the little girl pulled her aside. "Elena," she whispered, I know you have to go, but could you maybe come back sometime to visit? Elena's heart broke a little more. Lily, sweetheart, I don't know if I'll be able to, but you like it here, don't you? I can tell. And Uncle Jake likes you too, even though he pretends he doesn't. What makes you think that? Because he looks at you the way Papa used to look at Mama when he thought she wasn't watching. Like you're something special. Elena tucked Lily into bed, her mind spinning. Could the child be right? Was there something more than annoyance in Jacob's careful attention to her? As Elena tucked Lily into bed, the little girl whispered, I prayed every night for a mama, and God sent you in a beautiful white dress like an angel. Outside, torches flickered in the distance. A search party was finally closing in, and Elena's time in paradise was running out. The torches grew brighter as the riders approached. Elena's hands shook as she recognized Victor Harrington's tall, imposing figure leading the group. Behind him rode the town sheriff and 3 other men, all wearing grim expressions. Elena, Jacob called from outside. You need to see this. She stepped onto the porch, her heart pounding. Victor sat tall on his black horse, his cold gray eyes fixed on her with satisfaction. At 45, he was still handsome in a harsh way, but there was cruelty in the set of his mouth and the way he looked at her, like she was property he'd misplaced. There she is, Victor said to the sheriff. My runaway bride. Sheriff Morrison tipped his hat. Ma'am, you've caused quite a stir. Your father's been worried sick. Elena doubted her father was worried about anything except losing Victor's money. I'm fine, Sheriff. I just needed time to think. Time's up, Victor said coldly, dismounting from his horse. You've embarrassed me enough. We're going back to town right now, and we're getting married tonight. No. The word came out stronger than Elena felt. I won't marry you, Victor. Victor's face darkened. You signed a contract. Your father owes me money and your payment. That's how this works. Jacob stepped forward, placing himself slightly in front of Elena. The lady said no. This doesn't concern you. Rancher, Victor sneered. This is my legal bride, and I'm taking her home. She's not your anything, Jacob said quietly, but his voice carried a warning. Lily appeared in the doorway behind them, her eyes wide with fear. What's happening? Why are those men here? Elena's heart broke seeing the terror on the child's face. Lily had already lost her parents. Now she was about to lose the woman she believed God had sent to be her mother. Don't worry about it, little girl, Victor said dismissively. Then his eyes narrowed as he took in the domestic scene. Well, playing house, Elena. That makes this even more pathetic. Watch your mouth, Jacob warned, his hand moving closer to the gun at his hip. Sheriff Morrison stepped forward. Now, let's all stay calm. Elena, you need to come back to town. Your father has legal rights here. What rights? Elena demanded. The right to sell his daughter to pay his gambling debts. The right to see his family obligations honored, Victor said smoothly. We have a contract, witnessed and signed. You belong to me. People don't belong to other people, Jacob said firmly. Legally, she does, Victor replied. And if you interfere with my property, you'll answer to the law. Lily ran to Elena's side, wrapping her small arms around Elena's legs. Don't let them take you. Please don't leave me. Victor looked down at the child with distaste. So you've been filling some orphan's head with nonsense too? Even better. Sheriff, arrest her for abandoning her legal obligations. Now hold on, Sheriff Morrison said uncomfortably. There's no law against getting cold feet. There's a law against breach of contract, Victor insisted. And I want satisfaction. Elena knelt down to Lily's level, fighting back tears. Lily, sweetheart, remember what I told you about storms? Sometimes they come, and they're scary, but they always pass. But I don't want you to go, Lily cried. You're my mama. God sent you to me. Victor laughed harshly. God? Child, your mama is a runaway coward who can't honor her word. Don't talk to her like that. Jacob stepped forward, his patience clearly at an end. Or what? Victor's hand moved to his own weapon. You'll shoot me over a woman who doesn't even want to be here? She does want to be here, Lily said fiercely, surprising everyone with her boldness. She stays up when I have bad dreams, and she fixes my clothes, and she makes Uncle Jake smile. She loves us. Elena felt tears streaming down her face. This brave little girl was fighting for her when no one else ever had. That's enough, Victor snapped. Elena, get your things. We're leaving now. And if she refuses? Jacob asked. Victor's smile was cold. Then I'll make sure everyone in this family suffers for harboring a thief, starting with legal action to take that child away from an unfit guardian. Jacob went very still. What did you say? You heard me. A single man trying to raise a girl? The court might find that inappropriate, especially if someone raised concerns about your fitness as a guardian. Elena saw Jacob's face go pale. He would do anything to protect Lily, even sacrifice his own happiness. Victor had found his weakness and was using it ruthlessly. You bastard, Jacob whispered. Sheriff, you heard him threaten me, Victor said smoothly. I'm just trying to reclaim what's legally mine. Sheriff Morrison looked deeply uncomfortable. Jacob, Elena, this is getting out of hand. Miss Elena, you need to come back to town and sort this out proper-like. Elena looked at Lily's tear-streaked face, then at Jacob's anguished expression. Victor was going to destroy this family either way, whether she stayed or left. Victor grabbed Elena's wrist roughly, declaring, You'll return as my wife, or this child will suffer for harboring a thief. As Jacob stepped forward, hand on his gun, little Lily ran between them screaming, You can't take our mama. God sent her to us. The standoff had begun, and someone's heart was about to break. The tension crackled in the air as Jacob's hand hovered over his gun. Victor's sneer grew wider, clearly enjoying the power he held over them all. Go ahead, Victor taunted. Draw on me in front of the sheriff. See how that helps your case for keeping the child. Stop. Elena stepped between the two men. This has gone far enough. Mrs. Coleman appeared from behind the group of riders, having followed them from town. What's all this commotion about? Nothing that concerns you. Old woman, Victor dismissed her. Oh, but it does, Mrs. Coleman said firmly. This is my community, and I don't like bullies threatening good families. More neighbors began arriving, drawn by the shouting. Word traveled fast in small towns, and soon a small crowd had gathered around the cabin. Folks, Sheriff Morrison called out, this is just a family matter. Everyone should head home. Family matters don't usually involve guns and threats, called out Tom Bradley, the blacksmith. What's really going on here, Sheriff? Elena found her voice. This man wants to force me into a marriage I don't want. He's threatening to hurt Jacob and Lily if I don't comply. That's not how I heard it, Victor said smoothly. I'm simply trying to reclaim my legal bride who ran away on our wedding day. After seeing how you treat people, Mrs. Coleman said sharply, I can understand why she ran. Judge Harris, an elderly man Elena hadn't noticed before, stepped forward. I perform most of the marriages in this county. Victor, show me this contract you keep mentioning. Victor pulled out a folded paper, his confidence unwavering. Judge Harris studied it carefully while the crowd waited in tense silence. This contract, the judge said slowly, was signed under duress. No woman should be forced into marriage to pay her father's debts. The debt is legal, Victor insisted. But slavery isn't, Judge Harris replied firmly. Not anymore, and not in my county. This contract is void. A murmur of approval ran through the crowd. Victor's face went red with fury. You can't do this. I have legal rights. You have no rights over a free woman, the judge declared. Elena, you're free to make your own choice about marriage. Elena felt a weight lift from her shoulders. For the first time in months, she could breathe freely. Jacob stepped forward, his eyes locked on Elena's. Elena, I know we haven't known each other long, but these past few days, you've brought something to our lives that was missing. You brought hope. Lily ran to Elena, grabbing her hand. Please say yes. Please stay and be my mama. Elena looked at the little girl's pleading face, then at Jacob's earnest expression. "Jacob, I love you," he said simply. "I know it's fast, and I know it's crazy, but watching you with Lily, seeing how you care for us. I love you, Elena. Will you marry me?" The crowd held its breath. Elena felt tears streaming down her face as she looked at this man who was offering her everything she'd never dared to dream of: a real family, genuine love, a true home. "Yes," she whispered, then louder, "yes." The crowd erupted in cheers. Lily jumped up and down, clapping her hands with pure joy. Victor's face twisted with rage. "This is ridiculous. She was promised to me. She's promising herself to me," Jacob said firmly, putting his arm around Elena. "Like hell she is," Victor snarled, pulling out his pistol. "If I can't have her, no one will." The crowd gasped and stepped back. Sheriff Morrison reached for his own weapon, but Victor was faster. "Put the gun down, Victor," the sheriff commanded. But Victor's eyes were wild with fury and humiliation. "You've all made a fool of me. That ends now." Little Lily stepped forward, completely unafraid, holding Elena's torn wedding veil in her small hands. "God won't let you hurt our family," she said with perfect, innocent faith. Thunder crashed overhead as if heaven itself was listening. The thunder crashed again, louder this time, and a sudden gust of wind whipped through the crowd. Victor's gun wavered in his hand as he stared down at the fearless 5-year-old standing before him. "You're just a stupid child," Victor snarled. "God doesn't care about your little prayers." "Yes, he does," Lily said calmly, still holding Elena's veil. "He sent Elena to us when I needed a mama most, and he won't let you hurt her." Lightning flashed across the sky, and in that bright moment, Victor's horse spooked. The animal reared up, knocking Victor backward. His gun flew from his hand, landing harmlessly in the dirt several feet away. Sheriff Morrison was on him in seconds, pinning him to the ground. "Victor Harrington, you're under arrest for threatening innocent people with a deadly weapon." The crowd cheered as the sheriff handcuffed Victor, who was now covered in mud and cursing loudly. "This isn't over," Victor shouted as they dragged him away. "I'll make you all pay. The only one paying will be you," Judge Harris said firmly, "for disturbing the peace, making terroristic threats, and attempting assault with a deadly weapon. You'll be spending considerable time in jail." As Victor was loaded onto a wagon to be taken back to town, Elena knelt down and pulled Lily into her arms. "You were so brave, sweetheart, but you shouldn't have put yourself in danger like that." "I wasn't in danger," Lily said confidently. "I knew God would protect us. He always keeps his promises." Elena looked up at Jacob, who was watching them with wonder in his eyes. "She's right, you know. God did keep his promise." Mrs. Coleman bustled forward with tears in her eyes. "Well, I've never seen anything like that in all my years. That child's faith moved mountains, or at least moved a spooked horse at just the right moment." "What do we do now?" Elena asked Jacob quietly. "Now we plan a real wedding," he said with a smile that made her heart skip. "One where the bride actually wants to be there." 3 weeks later, Elena stood in the same cabin where she'd first found refuge, but everything had changed. Her torn wedding dress had been transformed by the ladies of the community into a simple but beautiful gown. Mrs. Coleman had helped her add new lace and adjust the fit, making it perfect for a frontier wedding. Lily stood beside her as flower girl, wearing a new dress that Elena had sewn herself. The child's face glowed with happiness as she scattered wildflower petals around the small cabin that had been decorated with ribbons and candles. Judge Harris performed the ceremony in front of the fireplace where Elena had first warmed herself that stormy night. The entire community had gathered to witness the wedding, their faces full of joy and approval. "Do you, Jacob Matthews, take Elena to be your wife, to love and cherish in good times and bad, for as long as you both shall live?" "I do," Jacob said, his voice strong and sure. "And do you, Elena, take Jacob to be your husband, to love and honor, in good times and bad, for as long as you both shall live?" Elena looked into Jacob's kind brown eyes, then at Lily's beaming face, then at all the neighbors who had welcomed her as family. I do. Then by the power vested in me, I pronounce you husband and wife. Jacob, you may kiss your bride. Jacob's kiss was gentle and full of promise. When they broke apart, Lily threw her arms around both of them. Now I have a real mama and papa, she declared. God answered every single one of my prayers. The celebration lasted late into the evening. Elena danced with her new husband while Lily spun in circles, her laughter filling the cabin with joy. Neighbors brought food and gifts, welcoming Elena officially into their community. Later that night, after everyone had gone home, Elena tucked Lily into bed in what was now officially their family home. Mama Elena, Lily whispered, will you tell me the princess story again? Every night, sweetheart, Elena promised, kissing the child's forehead. 6 months later, Elena hung laundry in the yard, wearing a simple blue dress that Jacob had bought her for everyday wear. Her movements were slower now, more careful, as she protected the growing life within her. Lily came running from the house, her face bright with excitement. Mama, Papa says the new baby will need the cradle he's making. Elena smiled, touching her rounded belly. That's right, sweetheart. Your little brother or sister will be here soon. Above the mantel in their cabin, Elena's torn wedding dress hung in a simple frame, not as a reminder of escape, but as a symbol of God's perfect timing. Sometimes the greatest blessings came disguised as disasters, leading lost souls to exactly where they belonged. Elena had found her family, Jacob had found love again, and Lily had found the mother she'd prayed for. In the end, a little girl's faith had been rewarded, and a runaway bride had found her true home.